I'm Sarah from You Floral, and today I'm gonna walk you guys through everything that you need to know before you know whether DIYing your flowers with You Floral is right for you. So today I'm going to talk about who we are and how our process works. I'm going to talk about how ordering works, and then I'm going to go over some frequently asked questions. So I'm going to talk about when you should get the flowers, when you want the flowers to arrive, your daily plan for your flowers, how to store the flowers, what supplies you need, considerations specifically for making boutonnieres, how many flowers you need for each item, and we'll even talk about a couple other things. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is who we are. So our business is called You Floral, obviously, and we have warehouses all across Canada and the US that we ship directly from the warehouse. Depending on what warehouse you're closest to determines which hub we send it from. So because we send our flowers directly from the warehouse to your house, they spend minimal time in transit. We supply bulk flowers and greenery, and so everything is sold in minimum quantity amounts, which is 10 stems per bunch for flowers, and then roses and carnations are 25 stems per bunch. So let's talk about how ordering works and when you should place your order. So you want to place your order a minimum of 3 weeks in advance. So you can place it longer if you want, but the 3-week cutoff is because we order our flowers directly from the farm, and we need that wiggle room in order to make sure that we reserve the flowers specifically for you guys. We can sometimes accommodate shorter notice orders, but then it really comes in questionable about whether we have the flowers or not. So 3 weeks in advance is what you need, but you can order really anytime. It doesn't have to be that tightly. Let's talk about some FAQs. So people ask me when we should get the flowers and what's kind of the daily sequence when you get your flowers. So if you have a Saturday wedding, you're going to want your flowers to arrive on a Wednesday. And so the reason for that is that because our flowers are florist grade, they're all shipped closed bud. And so the flowers are really tightly closed, and it takes a couple days for them to open up. This is particularly true for roses and carnations. So you need that little bit of time in order for the blooms to open up, because you don't want to make your arrangements when they're really tightly closed, because then they take up less space, obviously, than when they're fully opened up. So that wiggle room of getting them on Wednesday allows for them time to open up, and also helps if there's any sort of last minute hiccups, then you have some time spread out from your wedding. So for your schedule, you want to get the flowers on a Wednesday. When you get them, you're going to process them on that first day. On the Thursday, that's when you can make the arrangements. And then you're obviously just need to keep them in water. On Friday, you can make your boutonnieres, and then your wedding would be Saturday. So your flowers are okay arranged that far ahead of time as long as they're in water. Let's talk about what happens when your flowers arrive. So they come all boxed in cardboard, so they're dry shipped, meaning without water. So when they arrive at your house, it's important that somebody's home, because if nobody's there, they get left on your doorstep, and then that's questionable if porch pirates come. If it's hot, it's obviously not great for them to be sitting baking in a box on your front step. So when you get them, you're going to want to cut the ends with pruners, not scissors, and place them in water right away. So it's really important that you use the pruners, because scissors aren't sharp enough and they actually crush the stems and don't allow water to actually suck right up efficiently. So you're going to get them, cut them, put them in water. The flowers are delivered by, depends what city you're located in. So if you're within Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Saskatoon, we have our own delivery truck companies. Otherwise, we ship using Loomis or FedEx. So the flowers arrive between 9 and 5, but usually it's more around kind of the 11 till 2 time period. If for some reason you can't be home, like you have to go take the dog for a walk or pop out for some reason, just leave a note on your door telling the delivery driver that you're gone for just a jiffy and that you'll be back shortly. Okay, so now let's talk about where to store your flowers. So you don't want to have your flowers like sitting on your kitchen table right in a bay window with the sun like beating upon them, or a fan blowing on them, or your heater blowing on them. You just want to have somewhere that's a more neutral environment. So if you have a basement that's dark and cool, you can put them in there. If you don't have that, just put them somewhere where your cat isn't going to knock them over, or there's not going to be extreme wind blowing on them or extreme sun. They don't need anything super special, but just keeping them out of those more extreme elements. All right, let's talk about considerations for boutonnieres. So I make boutonnieres out of the scrap, so kind of the extra flowers. I like to use spray roses for my boutonnieres. That's a really great one to use because they're nice and small and they last really well. So I'll make my boutonnieres on the Friday for a Saturday wedding, and then I store them in a Tupperware container. And so with the Tupperware container, I put a damp paper towel in the bottom of the Tupperware container. I put the boutonniere in, and then I close it and I seal it and I put it in the fridge. And that's the only thing that I put in the fridge is those boutonnieres. The rest of the flowers don't need to be put in the fridge. In terms of supplies for boutonnieres, I like using these. So these are called boot sticks. So they're just little magnets, and you can make your boutonnieres directly onto these. So they're nice because you don't have any holes put in your suit, but they're not essential. You don't have to use them. And then you will need florist tape. So there's kind of two colors here, a green and a white. And it's important to note that the tape is not sticky until you pull it. So if you just take it and give it a little tug, the glue activates. If you pull too hard, it breaks. And that's how you're going to make your boutonnieres, is by using your floral tape to sort of wrap it around. So for boutonnieres, I'm just using scraps. I use like the scraps of my greenery or smaller flowers. I often use spray roses, like I said. Wax flower is great for using boutonnieres. I'll use sometimes ranunculus. A flower that doesn't work great in a boutonniere is a white panda anemone because they're super delicate, but otherwise you can just kind of use the scraps for making your boutonnieres. Let's talk about supplies you'll need. So essential is a pair of pruners. So you can get these at Michael's, Home Depot, really anywhere where you can get a good quality pair of shears. Also, you're gonna need containers. So this is just a bathroom trash can. So this one only cost $3.50, and so this is my favorite thing to use because it is a nice height. Sometimes if you use the buckets that are like from Home Depot or from a hardware store, they're really tall, and so then your flowers will be like hitting the side of the bucket, which is not great. So that's why I use these bathroom trash cans. I also use smaller containers like this. So this is just for pasta storage. You can get plastic ones too, or you can use vases. And so the reason is that sometimes there'll be flowers that are more delicate or that are shorter, and so I want to make sure to have a couple of these around for that purpose as well. In terms of how many buckets you need, I would put like one bunch of flowers in here. So this is kind of reserved for my shorter, more delicate flowers. And then for like this, I would put a maximum of 3 bunches in here. So if you're ordering 10 bunches of flowers, you need 3 black buckets and 1 of these guys. Greenery you can even put into a Tupperware container, but I don't like to crowd the flowers because that's terrible for them. They hate being smushed and they'll protest. So that's why I need to have a variety of buckets. Of course, you're gonna need, if you're making boutonnieres, you're gonna need that floral tape as well. The other thing that I like to use is zap straps. So these are zap straps, they're known as cable ties. I got this from the dollar store, and this is what I actually attach my bouquets together with. So they're super easy to use. You just stick one end through the other and then pull it, and then this holds your bouquet together really nicely. And then I just cover it with ribbon because you obviously don't want this ugly plastic thing showing up. So those are the supplies that you're gonna wanna make sure that you have in advance for DIYing your flowers. Let's talk about how many flowers you need. So the number that you need is dependent on obviously how many things you're making and how big you want them. But kind of the rule of thumb is that if you're making a bridal bouquet, you're gonna want to have 20 stems of flowers. And if you're doing a bridesmaid bouquet, you need 15 stems of flowers. Boutonnieres, you're just sort of using the scraps from your greenery and your flowers. And then if you're making centerpieces, it depends on what your centerpiece is gonna look like. So if you're doing like a mason jar centerpiece, like a kind of a small type style, I would put like 5 flowers in them. But if you want to do more of a centerpiece that is within like a container, like a vase, then you're gonna need to go more like the 10 to 15 stem route. For an arch, obviously dependent if you're making something really big, like a full arch that goes the full way around, or if you're just doing like kind of the clusters of flowers. So if you're doing clusters of flowers, then I would do 30 stems of flowers and 6 bunches of greenery. So then if you're wondering what types of greenery to do, For bouquets, I suggest using 5 different types, and you're gonna do a variety of sizes and shapes. So the big flowers, I will use things like roses if I have the budget to do it. If I don't have budget for roses, then I'll sub that out to carnations. I also like using large size mums because they fill a lot of space and they're super hardy. And then I get some medium sized flowers that are more bougie looking, so I like using ranunculus or white scabiosa are some of my favorite for that one. And then some smaller size blooms as well, like waxflower or limonium. So to kind of add up all the flowers to come up with a recipe, you're going to, I like doing this in Excel. So I have a column where I'm listing out everything that I'm going to make. So I have bridesmaids times what number, bridal bouquet times whatever. And then I count up the number of stems. So if I'm doing 20 stems of bridal for my bride bouquet and say I have 2 bridesmaids, that's a total of 15 for a bridesmaid, 15 for the second one, 20 for the bridal bouquet. That gives me a total of 50 flowers total. And then for greenery, what I like to do is 1 bunch of greenery does 3 bouquets. So in this example, I do 1 bunch of greenery and 50 stems of flowers. Flowers come in bunches of 10, except for roses and carnations come in bunches of 25. So in this example here, I would need 5 bunches of flowers. That ends up perfect. I need 5 different kinds of flowers in order to make a nice looking bouquet. So I would do a mix of small and large in order to make up that bouquet. So that's kind of the math of it. Come up with your items, multiply out how many flowers, the stem count, and then you come up with your recipe. So for greenery, I do 1 bunch of greenery for every 3 bouquets. If I'm doing mason jars, 1 bunch of greenery would do, say, 6 mason jars-ish. If I'm doing an arch, I do 6 bunches of greenery, and then I boutonnieres. I'm just using sort of the scraps for that. So I think that covers all the frequently asked questions that I usually get. So I'm always around to answer any questions that come up, so feel free to drop a note and I can help with anything you guys need.